All right, hello everyone. Well, everything seems to be working on my side. Let me hold on. I always need to check this. All right, I'm just gonna assume that it's working. And there's a little bit of a delay on YouTube, but hello everyone, and welcome to episode 5, Verdict of the Ancient Kings. Call for a motion to reconsider Exhibit A. I have no idea what that means. I'm just making the episodes sound a little bit more exciting. And alongside me today, I have once again Nico Sharp. Nico, how are you doing?
Good. Glad to be here and talk a little bit more about Hex.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on in Hex. In this coming week, we are going to be going over a lot of the common cards and also a lot of the common cards, the VIP weekend that's coming up, and also reviewing the puzzle that we went ahead and put out there not too long ago. For those of you guys who forgot what the puzzle was, it was a solve for the minimum value of X. Resources were 9, cards in hand, none, cards in crypt, none, cards in deck, none. Opponent's life total, a whopping 400, and your life total was X. Now, you can win the game if your life is at least X. Why don't you talk about a little bit about this particular puzzle and what was needed in order to solve it, Nico?
Sure. So this was Crota's brilliant idea, actually. He found a way to basically go infinite with Undying Weaver. If you got enough scrounge triggers on him, because every time you scrounge, it adds to the card text. So as you can see on the card text now, there's one scrounge trigger on it. So if you keep scrounging it, there's always targets in the crypt. You can eventually get to a point where you can go infinite with this combo. And that's basically what we were asking you to discover. That's why we increased the life total up quite a bit. So with 9 resources, the infinite, to go infinite per se, you need to have at least 23 life because you're going to take 22 damage from the Undying Weaver dying before you can go infinite with Grim Harvester and Hideous Conversion procs going off each other. I think it's like 12 troops in play is what you need to start to actually go infinite because you have to pay one for Grim Harvester. So in order to do that, you have to have a Hideous Conversion sacrifice. So basically, you need 8 Spiderlings to get 4 life, and then you need another 4 Spiderlings to pay for the Undying Weaver. So that's why you would need eventually 12 troops to be in play to continually do this cycle. So yeah, 23 life was the answer, or 21 life if you also considered an attack first with Grim Harvester. So we're giving you the win for either 21 or 23. I still need to send out all the prizes, but if you sent me an answer that said 23 life or 21 life, you got it right, and I'll be sending you something.
Yeah, for all of you guys out there who was looking forward to the math, we ended up creating a spreadsheet trying to break down what was needed. The spreadsheet, there's a link here on the video. There's also going to be a link in the video description. You can go ahead and click on it, and it goes line by line, each action, what you're doing. If you're sacrificing a reaver or a weaver, what's happening. If you're sacrificing for a resource, if you're sacrificing for life, and eventually you'll hit that magic threshold where you have 1 point of life, 0 resources, and then everything but a whole bunch of troops, and then you can start going infinite from there. And at that point, you can win the game. So hats off to everyone who actually did the ground or the legwork on this particular puzzle. I think Nico had said that this particular puzzle might have been too difficult, and he wasn't expecting a lot of submissions. So I wanted to hear from you. How many submissions were there?
Oh gosh, I got a whole bunch of them that were wrong. So I'm sorry to you guys that got it wrong. We got 9 people that got it right, and I think I want to say like 7 or 8 more that got it wrong.
Mm.
So about 17 submissions. But congratulations to the 9. So I'll be getting the 9 of you prizes. I think I might have already responded to the people that got it right for the most part. If I didn't, you'll still see something in your inbox soon.
All right, so moving right along, this upcoming weekend is going to be the first VIP weekend sealed for Herofall. And with the new release of the set, we have two new alternate art cards to be released. It's going to be Rizix and the Righteous Vanquisher. Two very, very beautiful cards. Two rather strong cards that I don't think are very meta defining, but at the same time, just nice to haves. Will you be playing in this upcoming weekend, Nico?
That's a great question. If I have the time to, I definitely will be. I like both of the VIP AAs, and VIP sealed is always very fun for me to play. I enjoy it more than the constructed, so it'll be a good opportunity for me to get my hands wet. How about you? Are you planning to play?
Yeah, I'm planning to play. I probably try to play on a Friday just before the kids get home and try to get everything taken care of. The alternate art cards do look amazing. The first time I saw the Righteous Vanquisher, this alternate art, I was wondering how it was going to be distributed, and very, very pleased to see just beautiful artwork and a very, very strong troop and body overall for this set of alternate arts. I know a lot of people in the last alternate art VIP weekends, people purposely held on to their VIP tickets, waiting for better cards, and hopefully we'll see an upswing in the upcoming tournament.
Yeah, I think we will see a lot more people playing. The last set, the Grace of Tianost, and I'm totally blanking on the other card, but yeah, they were just not as popular.
Yeah, I think it was
But
Psionic Flame, or
oh yeah, Psionic Flames. Yeah,
yeah,
that's right. It just wasn't as popular, but I think Rizix is going to be PvP constructed playable.
hmm
I'm not sure about Vanquisher yet, but if aggressive decks with Diamond in it become more popular, we may see her played a lot more as well.
yeah. I also know that what Righteous Vanquisher pairs well with the champion that lets you bring back a two-cost troop from your crypt, right? So you can get
Oh
the
yeah,
Righteous Vanquisher down to two fairly easily, and then it's basically a Rutherford Banks, except for it straight into play, costs significantly less, and you have a 5/5 life drain flight. So very, very strong cards. And well, the rest of the show is going to be going into how to win in this upcoming VIP sealed. And as I'm sure all of you guys know, the majority of the cards that you will be getting are common cards in your VIP sealed or in any sealed event, and a lot of it is how to make the most out of your commons and uncommons. The past weekend we looked at a lot of the more powerful uncommon cards, and now well, for the remainder of the show, which is may go long just because there's so many cards to cover. We're going to be looking at all of the powerful cards, shard by shard, and then talk about some of the synergies and strategies that you're really looking for in order to get the most bang for the buck. So we'll do like we did last week. We'll just go one card at a time. If you want to add anything else, Nico, if you think I missed anything, please feel free as I jump straight into the Black Fire Sorcerer. 3/1 socketable miner. Really, really most useful in either a diamond or a blood deck where your champion gives rage 1 to any particular troop. There is that minor blood shard that says a troop cannot block, or it cannot be blocked by a troop with lesser attack. So the Blackfire Sorcerer all of a sudden becomes, or has built-in evasion. I've also seen the Blackfire Sorcerer used with flight, but it's not used nearly as much just because there are some really, really solid diamond troops as well that can also get flight.
yeah. Just one little minor thing to add. It's also sometimes good paired with Ruby if you're playing like a Arden based Orc deck and you get some of those guys that give it +3 attack, the 3/1s.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
the Smiths, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So hunting cry is a quick action. So one of my favorite ways to use it is after a skittering Skarn dies, I use it on my opponent's turn to draw 2 cards with the
hmm
Scrounge 1 ability. Yeah, you lose 2 life, but you draw 2 cards for 2, and it's a quick action. So it's one of the better sources of draw that Blood has available to it throughout the entire game, not just set 5. So I really like that card.
Yeah, the fact that it's quick, you can play it on your opponent's turn, opens up a number of options. Your opponent may be thinking you're holding them back some combat trick if you're running Ruby as well. Moving along to Gruesome Deed, probably one of the best, if not the best, troop removals if you have Dreadlings. As an additional cost to play this, you have to sacrifice a troop. Well, Blood normally has ways to generate Dreadlings as well, so the Dreadling's gonna die at the end of turn. May as well put him to good use. Also, what I like to use Gruesome Deed for is sometimes the Dreadlings don't die fast enough. Where it's going to die at the end of your turn, but you want to scrounge. So the Gruesome Deed can get you that additional scrounge faster if you need it. I've seen people do Gruesome Deed, take out something, and then follow it up with an Exportion, the card to the bottom right there, off of the scrounge Dreadling as well, generate more Dreadlings, and almost getting kind of like building up a really, really strong play for the following turn.
The Cruel Venom Blade, just a nice 2/1 lethal troop with Scrounge 2 +3/+3, so it becomes a 5/4 if you remove 2 troops from the crypt. So that's a great side effect for a 3-cost troop, and the fact that it has lethal alone makes it great.
Yeah. All right, Dread Botanist, 2-drop 1/2, create a Dreadling and put it into play. Just way to add pressure, way to use assault, way to use scrounge, and most of the time your Dread Botanist is not going to see any harm or foul come to her. She's just going to be able to sit there and kind of laugh as she goes, "Go, my pretties," and the little Dreadlings, run into you and fall over and die.
Yeah, and she's a cornerstone to a lot of the Dreadling combo decks that are effective in limited. So definitely look for them in your pool if you're trying to build a deck around Blood. And jumping right to Taste for Blood, it also synergizes with the Botanist and Dreadlings. Every time you attack, it has an assault trigger that lowers its cost by 1. It's a very good card. I try to play at least 1 in any deck I'm running Blood because it gives you +2/+2 and Life Drain. And Life Drain is so hard to come by in the format. You can really save your hide in a late game scenario.
Yeah, definitely. Moving along to Spoil, revert target troop, then it gets -1/-1. This is really strong against a lot of the Valor decks that are currently out there. A lot of troops that get Valored are generally like 2/1s or have 1 defense anyways, say like the Blackfire Sorcerer. If they do get Valored, the Spoil removes the Valor and then permanently kills the troop. A very, very solid way to just stop a giant beat stick if a particular troop has too much vested into it.
Exporsion, along the lines of Spoil, also gives negative attack, negative health. It's -3, I believe. And Scrounge 1 creates 3 Dreadlings and puts them into play. So a great double value card. It's Spoil and Expiration. Am I saying that right? Expiration? Exporsion.
Yeah.
They both are 2 of the few cards that can actually deal with the Twilight Revenant, which is like a format-breaking card. So definitely look for those in your pool and try to play at least 1 if you have it to deal with that particular card.
All right. One thing that I will quickly note, the VIP weekend is a best of 3. So for all of you guys out there who are used to the Sealed Gauntlet, there is actually reserve in sideboard. So if you know your opponent is playing Twilight Revenant, throw in some extra spoils, things of that nature, and try and counter. Let's move right along to the remainder of the Strong Blood cards. Kuru Infiltrator, sacrifice another troop. This gets Life Drain and Unblockable this turn. This is one of those situational cards that work really well with Dreadlings. If you're able to sacrifice the Dreadling, get a little bit of Life Drain, and you're going to guarantee yourself 2 additional life while dealing 2 damage as well. Just very, very solid, especially with the champion that allows you to create a Dreadling or Dread Banner, 1 Dreadling every single turn. Now you can gain 2 life and deal 2 damage every turn as well.
Yep, and sometimes he's a perfect target for Taste for Blood, even though you're already getting life gain effect. Just pumping up his damage and having unblockable is nice. The Bleak Blade Twister is a troop that you can bait your opponent into thinking you have a lot of the times. Basically, it allows a Dreadling to become a kill card to whatever troop blocks it. So a lot of the times you'll just jump in with a dreadling, save up 4 resources, play a shard, and then play this guy to kill any troop that kind of jump blocks your dreadling. So it's pretty nice to have. Sometimes you can just play it for its 3/4 body, but it's definitely best used when paired with something that is blocking that's a lot larger than the troop it's blocking, just to take it out of the game.
Yeah. Duskwing Maiden, a 4-drop 3/2 flyer. Doesn't sound like much, doesn't have a lot of flair, but it's a solid body exactly for what you need. Some form of evasion, and with blood, if you can drop rage onto the Dustwing Maiden, all of a sudden a 3/2 flight with rage sounds much, much scarier, able to deal those killing blows rather quickly.
The Dusk Scout is a 2/2 and can't be blocked by Ardent troops, and with Ardent being such a popular format, a lot of the times this troop is just purely unblockable. So it's a nice little 2-drop to have.
Yep. Three Dead Eye Charger. 3-drop 2/2 speed that gets +1/+1 if you have triple. Excuse me, as something falls behind me. Triple blood threshold gets +1/+1. It's one of those cards that, well, speed is a card that your opponent can't really account for. Also, one of the reasons why I like the Deadeye Charger is it triggers assault faster as well. So there are a lot of assault troops that you can use across the board. Taste for Bloods, trying to lower the cost just by 1 in order to get something else.
Drain Soul is a just pure removal card. It'll also gain you 4 health if you have anything of Underworld either on the table or in your hand. So yeah, destroy target troop at quick speed. So it's I would say it's probably on the power level of the new Crackling Blast from Diamond. They're both expensive, but they both get the job done.
Yeah. Moving right along to Diamond, everyone's favorite basic speed murderer, essentially, or kill. Bring to Justice. It's 3 cost, double diamond threshold, so it's not something you can splash in as easily, but it voids target non-valorous troop. Now, non-valorous is very, very crucial here. Obviously, if the troop has a valor on it, it cannot be targeted, but the upside is that the troop is voided. Now, you may think Void doesn't make that big of a difference. There's only one real invincible troop in Limited. I can't remember, or can't count the number of times where I've counted on being able to scrounge something after a troop died, only to remember that it was brought to justice and it was sitting in the void and not the crypt.
Yeah, it's a great card. Jumping right to Forlorn Soldier, the card is just a spirit, so it doesn't have any ardent synergy or anything, but it has a great ability where if it dies, it has a 1-shot where it'll come right back into play. So if you have like Valor or any other things to pump it, it's great because you're going to get additional value off of its pumped up body for having a blocker twice or an attacker twice.
Yep. And also, when you can attack with it, and then if it dies, it still comes back into play ready, correct? So you can
Yeah,
you
as
can
a
still block
blocker,
with it.
yeah,
Yep.
that's a great combo.
All right, moving to Winter Brave, 3-drop 2/3 socketable miner. I've mostly see this socketed with the Diamond Gem, where it gets flight. It just becomes a solid body 2/3 flyer. But I've also seen it occasionally socketed with the Ruby Gem to create Valors. If you need those additional Valors in your deck, just a solid card for the meta that revolves around Diamond and Ruby right now.
In a best of 3, if you're playing against a very aggressive, pressure-heavy deck, if you have a few of these guys, you can even socket him with a +2 defense, which is great to deal with early game.
Yep.
Moving on to Lamify, it's a basic action, and it's one of the other few cards that can deal with like Twilight Revenant. It actually reverts the card and turns it into a llama. So it'll just become a 2/2 vanilla troop that is a lot easier to deal with than some of the largest threats in the game.
Yep. Moving along to Leyline Purifier. It's a one-shot. It has a one-shot that has 2 destroy target constant. It's a 1/3 body, so it can help deal with some of that early aggression. Bolt Spasm, I'm looking at you, but it can also remove constants because constants, and we've actually seen an upswing of constants in this particular format, even in Limited, just because so many of the champions create constants on your side of the board.
Yes, great reserve tech too if we're playing a best of three format. The Strider Scout is a 1/1 Swift Strike for 1, which alone is actually pretty good, especially against the aggressive format. But then if you also have 3 Diamond Threshold, it gets +1/+1. So nothing much else to say about it, but great cost for what it does.
All right, moving along to the Dusk Wing Priest. It's a 2-drop, 1/1 life drain flight. It has built in evasion, extremely strong, extremely useful. And because you are running Diamond, it's often very easy to put in some additional Valors on top of it, get it a little bit stronger. And a 2-drop, 1/1 life drain doesn't sound that great, but one Valor all of a sudden it's a 2-drop or it's a 2/2 and it does get a bit stronger. Moving along, it is going to be the Dawn Scout. Dawn Scout 2-drop 2/2 can't be blocked by underworld troops. Very, very solid body. Just it's going to be one of those cards. I think for the VIP weekend, you may want to splash in or splash out depending on what you're seeing from your opponent. Dawn Scout, one of those cards that could have a potential big upside, or could be swapped out for something if you need room for some other anti tech.
The Gust Mage, at first I thought this card was horrible. I didn't understand its value. But what you're getting is a Flight Troop and a Valor for 1 cost. And what it allows you to do is start triggering Assault right away. It also gives you a Valor to use in any way you want. So it provides early pressure, and also has a threat in the air that you can keep in play fairly easily.
Yeah, I got to admit, I saw the Gus Mage at first, and I'm just like, this is absolute trash. And then I started seeing people use it against me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. It really strong card. So we were both wrong on that. Crackling Blast.
Yeah.
Crackling Blast, the 5 cost. Smack yourself in the forehead for not remembering that they had 5 resources left. This is a card that you have to be on the lookout for. You have to play around for it, look for it and play for it. Otherwise, you can really be caught unaware. Just because it destroys target attacking or blocking troop and allows your opponent to gain a charge. That gain a charge could all of a sudden have a temporary inner conflict on your troop as well, depending on which diamond champion they decided to use.
I don't know how many Evos I've gotten booted out of because of that card. Because I didn't prep for it, and all of a sudden, boom, I get hit by it. Because I'm often looking at my pool, wondering, should I include a 5-drop like that in my deck? And I don't, and then I get beat by it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Cleansing Touch, it reverts a card, and then if that card is a troop that you own, I think is it target card or target troop?
Target
if it's
card.
a troop. Oh, target card. Okay, so if it's a card that you own, you get a Valor. If it's a card they own, you don't get anything. But for 2, it's a quick action, so it can save the day in many ways, or improve your board state.
Yeah, I actually had someone tried to kill, or I think it was bring to justice one of my troops. I then gifted the Manti, spell shielded it, and then he cleansing touched it and it reverted it back to some like pitiful troop that it was at the very, very beginning, and I just kind of like shrugged my shoulder. So yeah, very, very strong card. Adamantium War Priest, one of those cards that really centers around Valor. Adamantium War Priest is just grows and grows and grows. It's a 2-drop 2/1 that gets +1/+1 for each Valorous troop you control this turn. If itself is Valorous, it easily becomes a 4/3, and it just absolutely grows from there. So be careful, be on the lookout for the War Priest.
The Canyon Heller is a card that sometimes is good, sometimes is too slow. But for 4, it comes into play as a 3/3 and gives you a Valor. And then when you attack with it, all of your Valorous troops ready, including it if it's Valorous. So you can have an offense and a defense at the same time. Very, very good later game or mid game troop to have in your deck.
Yep. All right, moving right along to Ruby, Warband Ruffian. It is a 4-drop 2/3 Rage 2 that gets +1/+1 if it is if you or can spot triple ruby threshold, and just one of those growing threats that you have to be careful about. Most of the time, the first time it attacks, it is going to be a 5/4, and you can only chump block for so long before that a warband ruffian will one turn kill you.
Fire in the Hole is one of the better removals of the set because it is a quick action and you can use it right after you declare an attack. Every time you attack, its damage that it can deal goes up by one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great combat trick to use prior to blocks being made because you can take out a blocker right after pumping up its damage.
Yeah, very solid. Emberleaf Bladesman, 4-drop 3/3 socketable miner. Once again, anything with sockets in this particular set that has decent stats, very strong. I've seen the Valor, I've seen the Swift Strike, I've seen the non-blockable based on attack. Just a very, very solid body, and you can customize your deck to it.
The Surly Brawler is just a 2/2 for 2, but it has Scrounge 2 that gives it +2/+2, so it could be a 4/4 for 2, and it must attack. But it's a very good aggressive troop to play early on, and it does pair with other Underworld troops.
Talking about pairing with Underworld troops, my favorite Underworld Allegiance common in the set, the Mortar Trike Driver. It is a 3-drop 1/3 with Underworld Allegiance that says when this enters play, it gets Rage 2 and Speed. So all of a sudden, it becomes bigger, it becomes badder. And for those of you guys who don't know, and I think one of my opponents figured out the hard way, he actually bounced my Mortar Trike Driver back to my hand when I tried to give it Rage off of my hero power. And you're laughing because the
Yeah.
next time the Mortar Trike Driver comes into play, it came in with Rage 4 Speed, and it was flying hard, it was flying fast, and I even played a Razor's Edge on it once or twice to just make it that much more painful. So be careful what you bounce, especially if they have a come into play effect.
Yeah, the driver is actually one of my favorite cards, one of my favorite cards, and the bounce thing is something I was going to mention too. Is it's awesome pairing Ruby with Sapphire, and then playing a card like Retreat or a self-casted Lost in Time on
Mm.
your Mortar Trek driver just to get it even bigger. And also, you can have them back as a blocker too after you've attacked. So definitely a combo to look out for and to try yourself. Moving right on to Cremate, one of the best basic one-cost actions for Ruby is deals 2 damage to target champion or troop, and then if you scrounge one, it costs nothing. You get the resource back right after you play it.
Mm-hmm. Intimidating display. If you find yourself low on valors or needing valors, it creates a valor for you, but it also makes it so that target troop can't block this turn, and that one intimidating display may be all you need in order to push through that lethal damage. Very, very strong. Or if you have it with a Mortar Trike Driver, being able to get a little bit more rage so that you can in fact deal a killing blow to a larger blocker later on.
Razor's Edge is a nice little one-cost quick action that gives your troop +1 attack and Swift Strike. I definitely use this when I can. It's hard to fit in the deck sometimes, but it almost always nets you a 1-for-1.
Yeah. All right, moving right along to the Blazing Hammer, 4-drop, double ruby threshold, deal 4 damage to target champion or troop. I looked at this and I was just like, this is a boring card, but at the same time, it's just has so much value and can be so good because 4 just seems to be a magic number in terms of being able to kill the majority of troops out there.
Yeah, it is kind of boring. The art's kind of boring, but like if you think of a blazing hammer coming flying at your head, you're gonna be kind of scared.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
the Ashwood Firebrand is probably one of the pinnacle commons of the set. Just it's so freaking good. It's a 2-drop, 2/1, and when it comes into play, it creates a Valor. And then when it attacks, all of your Valorious troops get Swift Strike. And it's just one of the most aggressive cards in the set. You want to deal with it right away, and if you can't, you're probably going to lose to it.
Yeah, especially when paired with his friend, the Battlefield Ironsmith. When this enters play, another Ardent troop gets +3, and that's a permanent +3. So all of a sudden, your Ashwood Firebrands can become a 6/2 Swift Strike while attacking, and there's not many things that can really withstand a 6/2 Swift Strike while attacking in limited.
Baby Yeti is probably one of the strongest cards in the set, and it's not really a joke. It's just because Assault is so good,
Hmm.
and it also triggers one of the most powerful uncommons in the set, Mama Yeti, to actually be playable in your deck.
Hmm.
So that early aggression really pays off now in set five.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump to Ayotoshi Brute just because it combos so well with the Baby Yeti. And whenever you see a Baby Yeti in limited, you're not afraid of the Baby Yeti. You're afraid of what's following the Baby Yeti. And what could be following the Baby Yeti is a turn 2 Ayotoshi Brute or a turn 4 Mama Yeti. So, yeah, early aggression, being able to reduce costs of those troops, all very scary.
The Ashwood Transmuter is a pretty new, interesting card where you get to discard a card from your hand and then create a random Ruby common and put that into your hand. It can be from any set as long as it's a PvP card. So there's some very interesting things like I pulled in the past, like Crushing Blow. I pulled Fire, no, not Fireball. I pulled Burns.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a pretty interesting new mechanic. I quite like it paired with Valor because you can dump a Valor and most of the time get something even better. So great new effect, great new idea for a particular card. I think we'll be seeing more one shots similar to that in the future.
All right, moving right along to Sapphire, and there was actually very little love for Sapphire in the common section, and that might be one of the reasons why you don't see that much Sapphire. But let's go ahead and jump straight into it. Dust Cloud, target troop gets +1/+3 this turn. There's not that many combat tricks, and there's available. Being able to get +1/+3 is just one of those cards, one of those things where you can save a troop or and potentially kill a troop as well, just because one attack may be just enough, and that 3 defense is. A lot of people just don't think about that particular card.
The mechanized aerialist on paper looks really bad, but it does have assault -1 cost, and it has flight evasion. So a 3/4 body in the air that you can potentially play on maybe 3 resources or 4 resources is not bad, but you definitely have to pair it with a more aggressive um, shark color because blood is or Sapphire is a little slower.
Yeah. Moving right along, Shock Duster was actually a card that I chose, and it looks absolutely horrible. It's a 2-drop 1/2, but what a lot of people forget is that it's a quick troop. So it is a combat trick built in on itself, and what you can really do with it is try and stop your opponent from getting in that combat damage to generate a valor. This is something that I've seen splashed in, or I splash in if I'm thinking I'm going to be seeing a lot of Ruby decks where they need to hit with a 1/2 Gust Mage in order to get that valor because they dealt 1 point of combat damage. The Shock Duster turns that 1/2 Gust Mage into a 0/4, or the Shock Duster can target itself and become a 0/4 himself and be able to block significant threats while keeping a body on the board to use with Assault or something else.
Oh, nice. I never thought of them that way. That's actually a really good use. Good reserve tech too, I guess. The Death Crawler is a 1-drop 1/1 Venom troop with a socket miner, usually paired with the Dreadling mechanic, so you can
Mhm.
pay 2 to get 2 Dreadlings. But I guess it's actually good with Ruby as well, where you can get a Valor. Otherwise, not the greatest troop, but hey, a 1/1 for one that can start attacking and triggering assault triggers on turn 2 is not bad for Sapphire.
Yeah. Moving along to the Daring Freebooter. And this was a card that when I saw, I thought it would be an absolute powerhouse in limited until I realized there isn't that many Ardent troops in Sapphire. You kind of have to go into the Diamond and the Ruby. But the Ardent Allegiance is when this enters play, stun target opposing troop. And for those of you guys who forgot what stun is, it takes out the troop for 2 turns. They do not get to ready on their next ready step.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the freebooter. It is a great card, but it's just so few and far between for the Ardent Alliance in Sapphire itself. So the Jet Cadet is probably one of the staples of Sapphire that you'll be looking for if you're actually going to play it. It's just a 2/1, but it has flight and it only costs 2, and it can start getting in damage pretty quickly.
Yep. And why don't you hit up on the Broodnet as well?
Sure. So the Broodnet is a basic action that will keep a target with 3 attack or less locked down. This is not always the best card to play because Valor decks and other decks, there's a lot of attack pumping that's permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So people can find ways to get a troop above that 3 attack. But in the right scenarios, it's a great action to have in the deck.
All right, moving right along to Wild. Wakazashi War Bunny. This is a 3-drop 2/3 that makes the Shroomkin you control have +1 attack. Obviously, you want this deck, or you want this War Bunny in some sort of blood and or sapphire deck where you have a lot of dreadlings. Dreadlings do have our Shroomkin as well, and 1/1 sacrifice at end of turn is not that scary, but 2/1s all of a sudden, especially if you're generating 3 or 4 a turn, become a major threat.
The Root Wrangler is a suckable miner 4/2 and doesn't look great for 4, but just be mindful of this card if you're playing sealed as a reserve tech card because you can give it things like Steadfast, you can give it things like Swift Strike. So if you need to deal with large troops that may be getting through, or if you need to deal with large flyers in the air, he's a good card to splash in.
All right. Moving right along to the Smash Magus, it is a 4-drop 3/3 Scrounge 2 for an additional +3/+3. So he normally hits the board as a 6/6. Very scary. Um, and he just becomes a very large body that is often very difficult to deal with.
The Stinkhorn is a 1/1 lethal Shroomkin, so one of those great early game troops to play for Wild to start triggering Assault, and also pairs well with the War Bunny. So just be mindful of the Shroomkin keyword on that troop, and then because it has lethal, there's a lot of great combos with it with other cards that we'll mention later, like Crackling Flash below.
Yep. Moving on to Rust and Ruin. Rust and Ruin is an absolute just gem of a card because of the number of uncommon artifacts that will see play. There's the Socketable Major uncommon card. There is the just like the number of artifacts and constants, and Rust and Ruin will destroy that and also create 2 dreadlings, pairing up and comboing your assault as well. Just very strong as long as you have Underworld Allegiance. If you don't have Underworld Allegiance, it is still a card you may want to tech just because artifacts and constants are so prominent in limited right now.
Yeah, and moving on to Gift of the Manti. Actually, one more thing to say about Rust and Ruin is if you are playing a troop or a champion that is not in Wild, and you're not even playing Wild, just consider maybe even swapping to Wild during reserves if you're playing against an artifact or a constant heavy deck that's just, you can't think of any other way to beat it, and you have some of those removals. Anyway, just jumping right to Gift of the Manti, +2/+2 for 2, and Spell Shield. Great to use as a combat trick. Be mindful of holding it back sometimes until they play in action, because you don't want to get 2 for 1 when you play it.
Definitely. Moving along to the Spring Dancer, this is a very vanilla Valor troop. It's a 2-drop 2/2. Creates a Valor into your hand. Just it's vanilla, but vanilla can be very good. Just a solid card all around.
The Ambushire War Rider is a 4/5 for 5, but it also creates a valor. And then every time it attacks, all troops that are valorious get crushed. So really good late game card. It might be a little expensive for what it does, but it's usually worth it to finish out a game.
Yeah, and see, I know the Siegesaurus likes to see the War Rider come along. It is an 8-drop, 7/5 that gets its cost -1 with assault. So Siegesaurus, I usually see it on turn 4 or turn 5, and a turn 4 7/5. Very very strong attack. Its defense is a little bit lacking, and it can be taken out by team blocking. But at that point, you are still getting a solid 2-for-1 body trade.
And Crackling Clash is just one of the key removals for Wild in the set. It allows you to battle a opposing troop with a troop you control, and you also gain a charge. So great paired with Lethal, great paired with some of the larger bodies that you'll be playing in Wild. And it also gives you that charge, which will allow you to trigger your champion powers a little bit earlier. And there's some expensive charge powers in the set that are nice to have a little bit earlier.
Yep. Finally, moving on to the shardless cards. Ardent Decree. I don't know how much we can talk about this, but especially in the Evo gauntlets, without the Bone Walker, I'm sure a lot of you guys out there have been scrounging for that third threshold sometimes, or trying to play 3 thresholds until you get that first pack and get that first win. The Ardent Decree is one of those ways where you can kind of fix your thresholds and not have it cost too much, since you will be able to get a Valor off of it.
Yeah, I'll just move on to Primal Prism. I mean, most of the cards on this screen are about fixing. But yeah, Primal Prism also, if you're trying to get like maybe the third threshold to play a Fireball or a Clobberdon, or one of those 3 threshold cards, it's a nice card to drop into the mix to kind of give you either or. Also great to have if you're trying to go tricolor.
All right, Sapper's Wallbuster. It's a 2-drop artifact that is basically a bomb that sits on the table. At basic speed, spend 3, sacrifice this. It deals 3 damage to target champion or troop. And with the number of 3 defense troops out there that you want to remove very quickly, Mortar Trike, I'm looking at you. The Wallbuster is just very, very solid removal that you can sit on the board and wait for more things to happen.
The Underworld Decree, and another fixer for Sapphire, Wild, and Blood, and it has a pretty nice active too, where you can get 2 Dreadlings into play. So if you're looking for ways to fill the crypt for Scrounge, not a bad card to play, even if you don't really need that fixing.
Yep, and that's pretty much all of the commons that we will be going over. I know some of you guys out there, well, I wish you guys the best of luck in the upcoming VIP, even if I am playing you. Well, best of luck, and may the best player win, and hopefully we won't both get shard screwed. But let's go ahead and go into the puzzle for this week. Nico, do you want to talk about this puzzle? I believe this puzzle was one that, like, I believe the second or third iteration of this particular, of how you wanted to word this puzzle.
Yeah, so it's the third iteration. The first time I wanted to actually give the cards and let people pick the right order, but I think it'd be a little bit more challenging and more worthy of a prize if we have you guys figure out what those cards are. And I only think there's one solution, but if you surprise me and there's another, then good for you. So you're at 2 HP. Your opponent has declared his attack with the troops below. So you see the Cerberus, you see the Drew's Colossal Walker, the Rampaging Tarrasque, and the Shark Hired Horn Elite. Just because you see them ready, that doesn't mean they don't have rage when they attack. So any troop that has rage, that rage will also apply. You have 4 Diamond Threshold in play and 6 Sapphire Threshold. You have 10 out of 10 resources and an Augur of Syrian in play. You need to have 4 cards on top of your deck to survive. 2 of them are troops, 2 are 1-cost actions. There's no RNG allowed, so there's no transmog, etc. What cards do you need to have on top of your deck to survive, and in what order? Send your answers to me at nicosharp@gmail.com. .com, and if you have the right answer, I will put you into a drawing for prize. So good luck.
All right, are we gonna open this up to Hero Fall cards as well? Because right now I'm just looking at sets 1 through 4.
Oh yeah, so I haven't looked at Herofall cards. I don't think there's any possible combination from Herofall, but if you want to look at Herofall as a potential for the solution, go for it. That's fine. I'll open it up for Herofall, but this was built before Herofall released.
All right.
Um, and just one other quick plug. I wanted to mention that there's a new puzzle thread on the forums. So if you guys go, I'll send a link out for it later. I'll put it on our podcast, but it's a puzzle thread. People are making puzzles and sharing them, and there's also prizes. So check those out if you like our puzzles.
All right. Well, I guess that's all the time we have for this week. Best of luck to you guys all in the upcoming VIP weekend, and we will be back next week, and we'll figure out what to talk about. So, but until the next time, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.